I would now like to invite Mr. Paramjeet Dhillon. Paramjeet ma'am is the principal of Kamla Nehru Public School, Punjab for 26 years. And she's well-traveled, well-read educationist. I love the work she's doing in her school. And she has globally validated Master Trainer certification on 21st century core skills. She is also an Adobe education leader, a Wakelet ambassador, initiated IT transformation in school, and is a pioneer in mapping the entire school curriculum with United Nations and 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the moderator for this panel is none other than our Senior Director of Education Initiatives, Ben Fota. Well, everybody knows Ben. He visited India about 2 years back, and we all loved interacting with him. He is passionate about education, both K-12 and higher ed, with an eye towards digital and visual literacy. He's also written many books, and one of the famous books that we distributed to all our teachers is 40 Ways of Injecting Creativity in the Classroom. Let's welcome Ben, Mr. Basu, and Paramjeet.
Hello, good evening. Really good to be here. This is exciting. I'm talking to you from the United States. I'm on the East Coast of the US, so I had to get up quite early this morning, and I've been watching, for the last hour or so. And this is wonderful. The energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for the hosts, to Garma, to Clara, to Meenakshi, to everybody else who moves along. Educators are really important people. We have the single most important job in the world. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel like people realize that enough and give us the respect we deserve. But truthfully, we are helping ensure that the next generation is prepared and equipped to be functioning, not just functioning adults, but successful, happy adults, nurturing adults. And so what we do is really, really important. And so when we can get together like this and share and compare and collaborate, this is really useful, really important. And I love some of the examples, the stories we just heard, the discussions about assessment stories. Those are really important. But I'd like to actually up-level the conversation just a little bit, because as I'm watching the chats and comments in the window, and they're wonderful to watch, I see a lot of discussion on tools and specific outcomes, and that's wonderful. That's really good. I want to step back a little bit, and together with my guests here, Mr. Basu and Paramjeet, I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of creativity in the classroom. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and the first question really is for both of you, and I want to know, in your thinking, what does creativity in the classroom actually mean? I'm less interested in the tool and more in what is the outcome? What are we trying to do? What does creativity in the classroom actually mean to you? Paramjeet, let's start with you. When you think of creativity in the classroom, beyond students doing creative things, what are we looking for? What is the end game? What does it mean to you?
Good evening, Ben. Creativity is inventing. Creativity is experimenting. Creativity is splashing colors, using plenty of IT tools. Creativity is growing. It is taking risk. It is breaking rules and having fun in the classroom. And creativity is, it's ideating. Creativity is innovation. Creativity is expressing yourself. And creativity is engagement in the classroom. And creativity is fun. Creativity is making learning better. That's creativity for me.
Wonderful. I especially like the rule breaking part of it. If you ask my teachers when I was in school, they would tell you I was very good at rule breaking. It was one of my specialties. But the idea that we encourage children to be themselves, to find their voice and do what's unique to them, I agree completely. Mr. Basu, what about you? How would you define what creativity in the classroom is and what the objectives are?
I think it's all about sort of creating an environment by which the students will be free to express themselves. Because creativity is one of the highest order thinking skills, and it doesn't happen with boundaries. It doesn't happen with restrictions. So how can a teacher promote that sort of an environment by which the student will feel free to create? I feel that's That's the way where sort of the teacher steps back and lets the children take charge of what they're doing and promote them to express themselves.
Uh, Agreed. And that's wonderful. So it's really about creating individuals. For a long time, and I'm pretty old. So when I was in school hundreds and hundreds of years ago, the mindset was all students do the exact same thing. You have the same work and the same book and the same assessment and the same assignment, and the grading and the assessment was literally looking, and that's okay, I guess. But we're going to create thousands of exactly the same person, right? And that doesn't really help. What schools need, what industry needs, what humanity needs are people who do things differently. And as educators, we have a chance to help nurture that, and that's really exciting. And it manifests itself in two ways, and that's what I want to talk about next. Because often I hear people talking about creativity, and they focus on long-term skills, and that's really important. But I actually think it has an impact on both short-term outcomes, short-term learning objectives, as well as long-term success and skills. And I'd like to discuss both of those. Paramjeet, let's go to you first. In your experience, and I'm aware of what you're doing in the classrooms, and it's wonderful work. Tell me how you see creativity actually impacting immediate outcomes, education outcomes, how engaged children are, and what we can expect from them, both as parents and teachers, during their academic career.
Education outcome, the learning outcomes, as we call it, or the education outcomes, it's something which is all about knowledge and skills. All right, the students actually they acquire after doing a particular program or a course or some lesson they have learned, and why they're doing this and where would they be using it. That all comprise, I believe, what education outcomes are. And now when we talk about outcomes, I think we need to talk about Bloom's taxonomy. And Bloom's taxonomy is all about those 6 steps. It is about remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And creating is at the highest level of outcomes as such. All right. So the moment we talk about impact, now before we go to the impact, let me tell you, the educators in my school, 100% ACE level 1. All of us have actually applied for ACE 2 also. We have submitted a lesson, and God willing, I am ACE 2 also. So when we are already into creativity in preparing our lessons, in teaching the children with lots of creativity all around, with their hands-on creativity, the engagement is plenty. And the outcomes are not rote outcomes. I have by-hearted. I can just, speak out whatever you want. But it is something which you're going to remember all your life, because it is creative outcome which has come. All right. For example, when it comes to, sometimes we apply this digital Bloom's taxonomy, we call it. If it is blogging, it is the last level of learning outcomes, and that is creative. Be it with blogging, filming, podcasting, they are the highest level of creating the learning outcomes. If we can keep this in mind, that the outcomes are such that they have plenty of creativity in it, means the journeys of creativity of learning, then obviously the outcome is total creativity. And if the outcome is total creativity, it is going to stay with us all our lives, with the students. And that is going to leave an impact. And that is going to make learning interesting. And that is going to bring fun in the classroom. That is going to help the children to innovate. That is going to help the children to investigate and innovate and invent. And that is going to help the children to create. So the outcome, the impact of creativity on outcome is wholesome learning as such. It is an experience which I'm sure the children are going to hold all their lives. It would be an experience if that goes from the educator, because a creative educator, for him or her also, teaching creativity is an experience. Otherwise it was such a dull and boring school. At least I would feel like the same thing again and again, teaching the same lesson, but with this creativity concept, with Adobe, which we have embraced in a big way. Adobe educators, all of us are, and all the tools which we have embraced, it gives a spring in our walk when we walk to a classroom. When I say walk, of course it is remote learning, but you can have a spring when you go to your remote learning classes also. That's the impact on education outcomes.
That's wonderful. Thank you. You know, as you were talking, I was reminded of a study, and I was trying to, in the background, trying to find it quickly. It's been a while since I saw it. But there was a study a few years ago out of Education Scotland, where they took a series of schools and tried both ways, being a bit more prescriptive and a bit more hands-off, and with similar classrooms, and measured the success and outcomes over a period of time. And they came out with a list of things that they discovered that happen when you allow kids to be more creative, where the parents, where the teachers kind of step back and provide the framework and the structure, but let children take some control for themselves. And some of it is the obvious stuff, like they're more interested, they're more enthusiastic, they take control, which are all the obvious things. But there are some less obvious ones, like they work better with others, and they're more open to feedback and suggestion. And obviously, if you're a teacher, those are really, really important things to you. So thank you. That's really important, and I agree completely. Mr. Basu, I'd like to switch gears altogether, because our children are in school. They're going to be in school for 15, 20 plus years. And after that, they need to go out into the world. And we want to make sure that they're successful, right? I don't want education to only be about getting a job, right? Education should be about creating well-rounded people who can contribute. But we have to make sure they're successful, right? If our children graduate and can't find work, we've done them a disservice. And creativity is a fundamental skill. So this is something you and I have discussed before, but I'd like your thoughts on the role that creativity plays in long-term potential, in once they get out of school, ensuring that these students have successful futures. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, as I said to you before, it's this whole thing that we can encourage of going out of the comfort zone. It's all about going out of the comfort zone so that people will create. And most of these people that are high on these creativity skills, because we have dealt with about maybe 1,500 students who have graduated from the school over the years. And it's highly encouraging to see that a large number of them turn to be entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs means you're creating a job, you're looking at a new thing. So I think our roles as educators are that if we can give them the basic skill sets, and if we then give them that sort of a mindset that they can go out of their comfort zone and feel free to experiment, feel free to fail, because failures are going to lead to those environments where they are going to create. And, that sort of an environment is going to lead to people who are going to be creator of jobs, not just getting in somewhere and working for someone. And the way that the world is moving, and way that people where we are all looking at job creators, this is one order thinking skill which, if promoted with a sort of environment that, okay, you should not fear to fail, then I think that should promote those people to move forward, to be future entrepreneurs and create employment for life. That's a sort of long-term aspect that I feel has in creativity.
Yeah, I agree, and I think your comments have been proven to be, this idea is allow to fail, and it's okay to do so, and every failure actually is a learning and it's a stepping stone. Has been reinforced the last year with how we had to change everything from how we worked with the students to remote learning. Suddenly, schools and teachers were struggling too, right? These institutions who should have all the answers. And guess what? It took a while. I think everyone suffered, and education suffered greatly, but we started to learn out of this as well. And I think, if anything, it's reinforced. As a side note, in addition to my regular day job at Adobe, I'm a teacher as well. I still teach. I teach in high school. I teach computers and programming and robotics, and having to switch my class from being in person, because robotics, you need to be doing it. I need to be in a lab, right? You can't do it remotely like this. And so having to think differently and solve new problems and engage the students that way created some interesting challenges. And honestly, I'm seeing, while I was very stressed about it in the beginning, I'm actually seeing some of the students are flourishing and thriving when giving a different way to solve problems and asking them to solve the problem, not me telling them how to do so. So it's wonderful. There's always an opportunity. So
I must add something, Ben, here, is that, the students of ours who run their FRC team, they created a online module through the pandemic where they tried working with those sort of other teams which wanted to be built up. So all of this whole thing was created on a virtual medium through with the help of multiple applications. And I won't name one because I think they were mixing and matching the best of the applications which were available. But it's a mindset of when you are pushed back to the wall, you need to move forward, right? And then that thing comes of, okay, let's give this a try, and let's try this out, let's create and see what happens, right? And it's all about an attitude which leads to that sort of an aspect, rather than then the rest of the things can fall in place.
I agree. These challenges create opportunities, and so we don't have a lot of time left. But I would like to ask you each a closing question, and you have a couple minutes to answer. And I said I wanted to take the conversation up level, which I think we've done. But I'd like to. I'm looking at the comments in the chat, and people are very enthusiastic and they're very excited, and that's always true of educators. They want to do what's right for their students. So I'd like each of you to give me just a couple of practical examples. If there's a couple of takeaways, one or two takeaways that you would like the audience here to go away with and actually start to implement right now. Not big, lofty, aspirational things that will take a lot of time. Just very practical calls to actions. What would you do? What would be your parting words, and how would you like to see all these educators in India and around the world actually take this to heart? So Paramjeet, let's start with you.
So when in this age of creativity, I feel we cannot waste time standing and staring at it as such. So my dear teachers and my dear parents, let's embrace creativity. Let's have fun in our classroom. Let's make mistakes in our classrooms. And let's let our children ideate, innovate, and students create in a classroom. All right. With so much of online this thing, I think we have become a greener school, and I can never imagine report card or anything the paper use now. So let's all become greener and adopt creativity. I think that should be the takeaway point. No more papers required in the school. We are paperless now with all Adobe web page and plenty of videos around.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Basu, same question for you. Some closing thoughts. If people walk away with one takeaway, one thing they should implement right now that will change them, change their classroom, change the dynamics, what would that be?
I would say bring in a sort of project-based learning approach where children are encouraged to create. The second aspect, what I would always say, is to make various things available to them, to their licenses, which are available on a digital mode, to their own particular device that they're working with, because the more that they play with it, they will be more successful in creating. So if you can create an environment by which everybody is accessible, and then let them figure themselves out, and then the teacher plays the role of a guide by which they can move forward on that path.
Thank you. That's really good feedback, really good advice. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'll confess, my only disappointment with this entire event is that I'm thousands of miles away. I usually spend a lot of time on the road, and I try to be in India regularly. I love India. I love the teachers there. Some of the most enthusiastic, engaged, passionate, really well-intended people, who just all they want is what's good for their kids. And some of them working in very difficult situations, school